Thank you all for joining us here at I-80 Sports, where today we talk the recent failures of Commissioner Gary Bettman, as well as other news and notes around the NHL. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Thank you all for joining us here again at I-80 Sports. Make sure that you follow us down below at i80sports.com for all of our NHL content, as well as our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content as well. And hey, 'tis the season of giving as we roll into the Thanksgiving season and slowly roll into the holiday season. Make sure you check out our shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. Show that loved one this season that you truly give thanks for them and love them as well. And if you're here on YouTube, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe for all of the content that we've got coming up. And if you're on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at I80_sports NHL. And if you're following us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. I'm Brian. He's Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing well. And here we are. It's been a interesting week with a person who a lot of people in hockey really do love every time he presents that Stanley Cup.
Yes, NHL fans truly do love to show their love to this certain individual that we're going to be talking about soon, any chance they get. And actually, this is also a very, how do I put this? A very momentous day here for I-80 Sports, because this is going to be the final broadcast from my room, actually, because I'm going to be moving and I'm going to be in a new room, a new, battle station from now on. So take a gander around this room. This is the last time you guys are going to be seeing this. These Christmas lights, my creepy Aku Aku masks, looking over my shoulder every chance you get. Maybe you didn't even notice Kermit, in the background there, just kind of just wide mouth opened, yawning the entire time because of how boring I probably am, but even still. But yeah, exciting for me. I'm actually going to be moving out of here and getting a new space for my soon-to-be wife, which is really exciting. But you're here to talk about some NHL news, and that's what we're here to deliver. So it's time to start, as always, with our traffic report. It's time to talk the NHL news.
The I-80 Sports Traffic Report, where you can find all your news and notes from the week.
Talking some NHL news to start off with before we get into what the real title of this episode is about. So if you're here for that, fast forward a little bit, you'll be able to find it real lickety-split quick. But to start off with, in terms of the news, the injury bug for the Vegas Golden Knights continues. Center William Karlsson is going to be out for at least 4 to 6 weeks because of a foot injury. Tom, we've been watching the Vegas Golden Knights for the past week now with a already injured lineup. Did it just go from bad to worse in Vegas, or what?
It most definitely did. And I, for one, I put on the game last night between them and the Toronto Maple Leafs just because I had really nothing else to do. I put it on, and Toronto made them look like an AHL team. Of course, the Leafs are finally finding their stride a little bit, so I wouldn't say it was a fluke. The Leafs have been playing a lot better hockey over the last week or so. But yeah, they definitely, this is definitely a big problem for them. And we had them as a cup favorite. I didn't predict them to win the Stanley Cup per se. I predicted them to finish first in the Pacific Division. But right now, this doesn't help. I'm not saying this is going to totally screw their season up. We're only in November. And as a Ranger fan, I remember back in 2014, I remember at Christmas time, talking to somebody saying, this will be the first time ever that all 3 metro area teams won't make the playoffs. And then there we are in June with the Rangers playing in the finals. So I'm not saying their season's over, but this doesn't help them. And this definitely benefits a team like the Edmonton Oilers because, we know one thing about those Oilers. They are a good regular season team, a very good regular season team. And this allows the Oilers to pull away even further from the Golden Knights. So, hopefully they can shake this injury soon and make it interesting in that Pacific Division. And, things may even get more interesting in that Pacific Division if a certain move does happen over the next week, whether it's with them or another team.
We'll just have to see. But, For an already ailing Vegas lineup, this hurts quite a bit, losing William Karlsson like this. And look, the Vegas Golden Knights, get a better look at some of the younger forwards right now, like Peyton Krebs. Peyton Krebs is getting top 6 minutes right now, which is fantastic. But the problem becomes this is a team that before the season began was seen as a cup favorite. They were seen as a team that was a favorite not only to win the division, the Pacific Division, that is, but they were also seen as a team that was going to go as far as maybe even win their first Stanley Cup this year. So, needless to say, they need to shake this injury bug quick. They've got William Karlsson out. They've had Mark Stone out. They've had Max Pacioretty out. So, they really need to shake this injury bug quickly if they want to get back on track. But we're going to be looking at that a little bit more maybe in the coming weeks if this does persist. Next, Montreal Canadiens. They're in the news twice this week. And no, it's not because of their losing ways. It's even worse than that. Because Montreal Canadiens have decided to assign rookie forward Cole Caulfield to AHL Laval. He's been demoted to the Laval Rockets. Is this too soon, Tom? This feels like it's too soon.
Well, I mean, if you look at it you got to look at it from both sides here. He's got 1 assist in 10 games after coming in last year and really, really tearing it up. And to tell you the truth, there's a similar player, and I hate to keep using Rangers references, but it just makes too much sense right now. I remember Chris Kreider was in a similar situation. He came in just for the playoffs of 1 year, and then when the regular season started the next year, he found himself doing some time in Hartford a few times. Is it too soon? And I do believe it's too soon. With Kreider, it was different because the Rangers at the time were a playoff team, were a contending team. Despite the Habs going to the Cup last year, and I hate to sound like a broken record because I feel like I've said the same thing over and over and over again in the last couple episodes, and I apologize, guys. If you want to mute me or skip over this, feel free because you know what I'm going to say. You already know what I'm going to say about this. The Habs going to the final last year was sort of a fluke, sort of a smokescreen. This isn't a cup contender. This isn't even a playoff team. So I understand maybe it's to get his confidence back up, but at the same time, does it help this team at all? No. Does it hurt them? Maybe a little bit, yeah. Let the kid play himself out of it. This team isn't really going anywhere this year. So I understand from both sides, yes, he's a young player, maybe he needs to get his confidence back up. But at the same time, despite them going to the finals last year, this is not a cup contender. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this makes zero sense to me right now. He played all throughout the playoffs last year, and you decide to demote him now after only 10 games. I get if you're trying to give him a reality check. I get that if you're trying to give him some more priority minutes in the AHL to maybe work out certain kinks either on the power play, penalty kill, if you're looking to be that Swiss Army knife. But in this case, that's not the case. You're demoting him because, you haven't performed the way we thought you have so far, so we're going to demote you. I honestly don't think it's the right call. I think you just need to let him work through his rough patch. This is a team that is not prime for the playoffs right now, so let him work through his kinks. Some guys need to iron out, the rough ends at the NHL level. Cole Caulfield could be one of those people that needs to do that. So to me, I don't know. I think Montreal demoted Cole Caulfield a little bit too quickly, but hey, there's a reason why we're only armchair GMs, and there are other GMs that got paid to do this as well. To make this quick, the Montreal Canadiens also were in the news again because forward Cedric Paquette was suspended for 2 games for boarding. Tom, just real quick on this one, right call. Was it good enough? Not good enough?
I think it was good enough. But if this were, say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that wouldn't even have warranted a suspension. I just looked at the hit. It was from behind, but I've seen much worse, much, much worse than that. At the same time, I think it was the right call just for the concussion protocol and just the state of the game nowadays. I think you had to do it. You had to do it. And I think Paquette, and we keep hearkening back to this Montreal team, I really think Paquette just did it out of frustration. I don't think he meant any ill will. Just the team, and I say it, and I'm sorry, guys. I am sorry. The team is not good. That Montreal Canadian team is not good, and I think he just did it out of straight frustration over there because Anaheim isn't a very good hockey team either.
Who also beat the Devils last night 4-0. But anyway, my sadness aside, yeah, I thought it was the right call. I think the call is fine. There would be a little bit more anger if he wasn't suspended. I think the Department of Player Safety needs to, set the tone and set the tempo right from the get-go of this season and just show that they are serious about, the safety of their players, and something that we're going to talk about a little bit later as well. And ultimately, I thought this was the right call, moving right along from here. Now, I need to make an amendment for a bit of news that I gave last week. In our quick hits last week, I stated that Drew Dowdy's injury for the Los Angeles Kings was not bad. That it looked like he was just going to be day to day. And, well, the same day that I literally broadcasted that, about an hour later, I get a message from ESPN stating that he's going to be out for actually 8 weeks. So my apologies for the false reporting. I need to just come right out and say my apologies for that. We do try to pride ourselves on giving the most accurate information possible whenever we can. But in this case, we, namely myself here, we're not accurate. So my bad for that. I promise I will do more in the future to amend any kind of mistakes like that and also avoid making mistakes like that in the future. But that being said, now we know Drew Dowdy is out 8 weeks. Tom, how bad does this hurt the LA Kings?
I mean, it hurts them, but at the same time, I mean, it does hurt them, but at the same time, they're a rebuilding team, so it'll let somebody get a little more playing time. I didn't really have the Kings making the playoffs this year, going on a run. If anything, maybe it hurts Dowdy's trade value. I don't know if they were going to try and trade Dowdy, but it was something I alluded to maybe in our not maybe in our season preview. I did allude to it in our Kings season preview that maybe Dowdy might be on the block this year come the trade deadline for a team that's looking for a legit number 1D. So maybe that hurts his value a little bit, but at the same time, it hurts him, but I don't think in that big of a way. It'd have been different if he was playing for a team like, say, the Edmonton Oilers, and he's that rock number 1 defenseman, and his knee is blown out for 8 weeks. So it's a loss, but it's not a huge loss because the Kings, let's face it, are a rebuilding team.
Yeah, I mean, again, my bad for the false reporting, but ultimately, for a rebuilding team or not, losing your best defenseman always hurts. So that being said, Drew Dowdy, wishing you a speedy recovery. Sorry for the false reporting there, bud. Lastly, before we get into what the title of this episode is, we've got some real quick hits here in terms of news and notes. Sidney Crosby returned to action for the Penguins over the weekend, only to test positive for COVID, so he's going to be out for just a little bit longer. So the hits keep on coming for the Pittsburgh Penguins in that.
Wait. Didn't he already have COVID?
He did. Moving right along. Wild. And I know now he's going to be on protocol again because he just tested positive again. Wild. Jack Hughes will be evaluated. New Jersey Devils forward Jack Hughes will be evaluated 5 weeks from now for his dislocated shoulder. So hopefully December is when he's going to be looking to come back at this point. Maybe late November, early December, more than likely. Team China will get to participate in the Winter Olympic qualifier. After all, there was some say that they would not be able to qualify. They are still participating in the Winter Olympics. Congratulations to Team China, even though it's probably going to be a quick and swift exit for them.
I got one thing to say about that, though.
Go ahead.
You remember years ago they had this commercial with Ovechkin? It was called the Ovech trick, where he would score 9 goals. It was was something they made up.
Yep. Could
you see Connor McDavid maybe putting 9 goals up against China by himself?
I think that's being modest. Next, this one will make Tom really, really happy. Adam Fox, defenseman, New York Rangers defenseman Adam Fox signs a 7-year extension with the New York Rangers worth $9.5 million a year. He is now the highest paid defenseman after an entry-level deal, much to Tom's delight, but then not to Tom's delight. The New York Rangers have loaned Vitaly Kravtsov to the KHL, which probably puts a damper on a bunch of different fantasy trades that Tom had going in his head. More on that a different time, though, to say the least.
Can I just say one thing before we move on? And I'm sorry to keep interrupting.
Of course.
This situation doesn't make a lick of sense to me. Kravtsov says he doesn't want to be there. Jury says he doesn't want him there. They try to call him back there. He still says he doesn't want to be there. Then they loan him out to Tractor, and he says he wants to come back, and they say, oh, yeah, we want you to come back. But then they loan him out anyway. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I'm going to leave it at that.
Chris Drury doing Chris Drury things. That's all I will say. And then lastly, this news just makes me happy. And I know hopefully it makes our guys over at Frozen 4 happy too. The Buffalo Sabres are getting a new team dog. Yo, that's so exciting. And if you're interested about voting on what the name could be, what they should name their new team dog, go on over to Twitter. It's actually on their Buffalo Sabres main page on Twitter to go and vote for that. So if you're interested in doing that, go vote on their Twitter. But now it's time to get serious, because now it's time, as always, when we get to this part, it's time to pump the brakes.
Not so fast. It's time to pump the brakes.
Yeah, there's no avoiding talking about this. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the past week, there's been a lot going on in Chicago lately. We had an episode about it last week. Maybe you checked it out. If you didn't, make sure that you checked it out from previous week and go and watch that to get caught up on what's going on. But Gary Bettman had a press conference a few days ago discussing their findings with the investigation of the Chicago Blackhawks television analyst who sexually assaulted a player, the player who has now been recognized as Kyle Beach. And he not only, meaning this video analyst, he not only sexually assaulted this player, he also has sexually assaulted a high school player as well. And Gary Bettman had a press conference related to this, and he did everything he could to eat his own foot at this press conference. He did everything he could to make himself look utterly horrible, which is now put his leadership under a microscope, not only just for, his mishandling of the Chicago investigation. It's not only just his lying about wrapping up the Bill Peters and Akeem Alou situation from last year, but there's just been multiple decisions over the past 20 to 30 years under his leadership that it's all coming to a head. And you have a lot of different writers out there calling for Gary Bettman's head, namely, just to name a few people who have been kind of gung-ho about this. Alan Walsh has been one person that I've been reading a lot from. Pierre LeBrun is another person. Elliot Friedman has been doing his reporting on this as well. And a lot of people have been coming out of the woodwork to express their disdain for Gary Bettman as a leader, as a commissioner, and in some ways as a human being, because, there's been a lot that he has said regarding the Chicago investigation that kind of questions his moral compass. So that being said, Tom, I'm going to open the floor to you because I know you're going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and I welcome you to do so, because certainly if there are things that you disagree with me on, you can certainly call me out, and vice versa. So that being said, Tom, let's hear from you first. The question is this, and this is also going to be our question of the day later on. Is it time for Gary Bettman to either resign or to be outright fired?
Well, you know what? It's a hard question to answer because, in addition to this, you look at a lot of the bad things that had happened under his tutelage as commissioner of this league. You've seen 3 work stoppages and 1 pure cancellation. You've seen the terrible implementation of the salary cap. You saw the dead puck era. You saw some terrible relocations and some terrible expansion cities that the league went to and completely failed in. Because he tried to overmarket the league. Because let's face it, when Bettman was brought in, he wasn't your typical hockey guy. Before him, you had Gil Stein for about 3 minutes. You had John Ziegler, who actually was American, believe it or not, from Michigan. And then before him, you had Clarence Campbell, Red Dutton, and Frank Calder and Red Dutton, forget about it. But then you had Clarence Campbell, who was maybe too conservative in presiding over the league for so many years with only 6 teams. So in a way, Bettman did do some good things. He got some Southern expansion going. He got some other teams, He capitalized on the Wayne Gretzky trade back in the 80s. Said, okay, we have our biggest star in the West Coast. We should be looking to go to more Sunbelt cities like LA. It worked in some places, namely Dallas, even though Dallas wasn't an expansion team. But, you look at the failures in Arizona, and I'm not talking team failures. I'm just talking outright franchise failures. Arizona, failure. Florida, failure. Atlanta, they play in Winnipeg right now. And then you look at a city like Seattle, who probably, if you would have relocated or expanded a team there into the 90s, would have been great. At the same time in the 90s, the league had no network TV deal. He got the league back on network television and kept them there. He got the league out of that terrible ESPN deal in the mid-2000s and put them on NBC, where they were given a little bit more of a serious, or taken a little more seriously. Excuse me, guys. Sorry. You also look at the Winter Classic. He was able to get the league out of get the league back into like the Heritage and the Winter Classic type things, which worked. At the same time, we had 3 work stoppages under him. The first in 94, 95 really screwed that one up. The league was maybe at its highest popularity ever. At the time, basketball did not have Michael Jordan anymore. He was on his first retirement. Baseball was going through that strike that canceled the World Series. Then you look at the NHL. Game 7, Stanley Cup Finals, and Madison Square Garden. The Rangers had just won the Cup, and I'm not tooting this along as a Ranger fan. You had that great Ranger-Devil series. You had interest in the league sky high, and you decide to lock the players out in 95 when you could have capitalized big time with no MLB playoffs and dwindling interest in the NBA because Michael Jordan was no longer around. Screwed that one up. Now, the work stoppage in 05, I agree with a little bit. The league needed change in 05. It really did. It needed a cap. It needed the revenue sharing. You look at those teams in the 04 playoffs. You look at teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings and how stacked those teams were with players. And luckily, Tampa Bay won the Cup that year to prove a small market could. But then you look at some small markets back then and just how little resources they had. So I do agree with the league did need that salary cap and needed the rule changes to make the game more exciting. But at the same time, they should have found a way in 05 to play a shortened season, even if it was 32 games long like they were predicting back in March of that year. That should have been done. And then the 2012 work stoppage, I'm still trying to figure out what the hell there was a lockout for that year. Still trying to figure that one out, and I can't figure it out. So he let that happen. At the same time, he seems to be very hands-off and a don't ask, don't tell guy in the wake of this investigation in Chicago and in the investigation in Calgary. Now, I understand he works for the owners, and maybe that's his problem, that if he exploits owners like Rocky works and like the Calgary ownership, remember, the owners can push him out. And maybe he's trying to save his own job. But at the same time, I think he's at a dead end either way and a 6 of one and a half dozen in the other. Will Bettman resign? I really don't know. This will have to be taken to the extreme for him to resign. Will he be fired? Well, technically he can't be fired, but I think technically he can be voted out as commissioner by the owners. A lot of owners are getting upset with him, but it just depends on how many of them get really upset with him to the point where they push him out. And then your other problem with this is that I'll address this a little later on, but who do you get to replace him? Who do you get to replace him in this? And what kind of commissioner do you want to replace him? I'll go into that later on, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'll say exactly what I said on Twitter a few days ago when Gary Bettman gave his press conference. And that is the NHL, Gary Bettman, and the owners need to take a long look in the mirror after this whole debacle. Seriously, it is beyond disgusting how complacent the league was with 2 young players' lives being ruined by this let's call it what it is, a sex offender. Shame on all involved, but more shame on Gary Bettman for sweeping it under the rug. As we have come to find out, the organization of Chicago has done nothing but try to sweep it under the rug and said, we don't want to worry about it. Gary Bettman said, we don't want to worry about it. And it's coming back to bite everybody who was involved. Gary Bettman has messed up time and time again. Look at the wrap-up of the recent Akeem Alou racism allegation. Gary Bettman announced that proceedings and investigations have wrapped up and that Alou and his agent have been notified of their findings. Turns out, nope, he lied. His agent went on Twitter and said, well, that's news to me that I've been informed of all this. And that's a complete failure on Gary Bettman. There's so much to unpack with this. Gary Bettman has been a cancer to the NHL ever since he became league commissioner. From 3 lockouts, one of which was an entire season where the NHL has since been rebuilding 16 years later. Yeah, you can argue all you want. They needed that lockout. The salary cap was a major issue, this, that, and the other. It has done nothing but hurt the NHL since. It has done that lockout. The NHL still has not financially recovered from that. From that to issues with the implementation of the salary cap, as well as other teams circumventing the salary cap for their own personal gains and Stanley Cup wins, as we have come to find out. From also a lack of global and international reach. Bettman has not done a very good job of marketing the NHL to the rest of the globe. Failure to address addiction around the league, namely everything that has been coming out from, unfortunately, the passing of Jimmy Hayes, as well as other players getting suspended for, substance abuse, from addiction, and, his recent debacle, meaning the Chicago instance, and I don't mean to be crass, but that's just, if we can censor this, we can, whatever. I don't care. As the cherry on top of the shit sandwich, this is an utter failure in leadership by Gary Bettman. An utter failure in leadership. If the NHL wants to be a progressive league that truly ensures the safety of all of its players, coaches, and employees, then the NHL needs to really consider firing Gary Bettman. I think enough is enough. I think, there's not much better that's going to come of Gary Bettman. There's really, what you see is what you get with him. And you can't force someone to care. And it's very obvious to me that Gary Bettman, he doesn't care about player safety. He doesn't care about the well-being of his players, his employees, his coaches. He doesn't care about that at all. He cares about lining his pocket. But it's not his fault. He's a commissioner. A lot of commissioners care about lining their pocket. But in this case, to me, it's too big to ignore. Enough is enough. For me, I think it's time for Gary Bettman to go. But that's just my take. You guys might have a different take down below in the comments section. And I welcome your comments down below. We can have a cordial conversation down below. I promise you, we can absolutely have a cordial conversation down below. Play devil's advocate. If there's anything you disagree with me on or anything you disagree with Tom on, let us know down below. For now, we're going to move away from this topic and get back on track because it's time now to talk about our high performers of the week. It's time to talk high performance.
Your I-80 Sports High Performance Players of the Week.
We're talking the players of the week in the NHL, and we had some players that performed pretty well this week, not going to lie, and all month, to be honest, over the month of October. So, Tom, who to you are your players of the week?
Come on, you already know what I'm going to say. No, I'm not going there that route this week. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. I'm going to go with a gentleman who plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning who might not be as well recognized as some other players on the team. I'm going with Alex Killorn, believe it or not. 6 points in 3 games for the Lightning. And, a lot of people, when you think of the Lightning, you think of Stamkos, you think of Hedman, think of Kucherov, you think of Point, you think of Vasilevsky. Killorn is like one of those guys that just about every championship team or every good team needs. He's like one of those glue guys. And they compared his Tampa Bay Lightning club to those 90s and early 2000s and even, kind of late 2000s resurgent Detroit Red Wing clubs. And he reminds me a lot of Thomas Holmstrom, believe it or not. Holmstrom was that guy. You never, when you talked about the Red Wings back then, you never really brought him up as one of the first 5 players you thought of. But he was a guy who could get the job done when you needed him to. So Killorn had himself a hell of a week. 6 points in 3 games, 4 goals, 2 assists. I got to give it to Killorn. Another one, and this one I will be a little more obvious with. And I don't even know if we can count it as this week, but Austin Matthews finally woke up last night against the Golden Knights, had himself a 2-goal second period, and the Leafs are playing better hockey. And if the Leafs are playing better hockey and Austin Matthews is playing better hockey, watch out. Obviously, I know everyone's going to say we've heard this story before, but I mean, you figure they'll get out of their own way at least once, right?
No. And God said no. But it's Toronto. I just learned over the years never to trust Toronto. Sorry for being a cynical hockey fan, but good for Austin Matthews. Yay, you scored against an AHL team. But for me, I've got 3 players that I want to highlight here. Alex Ovechkin continues to tear. He's got 15 points in 9 games. He has been an absolute unit and an absolute beast. He's been fantastic. He's on a goal per game pace right now. What more can you ask for a player like that? Next, a rookie that I'm going to highlight here, and actually our friend Bex is also probably going to be happy about this. Moritz Seider for the Detroit Red Wings also has been very good in recent weeks. 8 assists in 10 games. Actually, his last game was the first game in like 5 or 6 games where he didn't record an assist. So he's been very, very good as of lately, playing some solid defense also for a Detroit team that is desperate for defense. And lastly is, and I can't believe I'm still even mentioning this guy. It's, still impressive how well he has played. Freddie Anderson of the Carolina Hurricane. He's having a career renaissance with the Carolina Hurricane right now. 7 wins in 7 games played, and he currently sports a 1.29 goals against average and a 956 save percentage. That is unreal. We'll see if he continues this pace of play, but right now, if the season ended right now, he's your, hands down, he is your Vezina winner and Jennings winner all rolled into one right now. He might even be your MVP, to be quite honest. He has been that good for the Carolina Hurricane. But as we come to the end of yet another episode of I-80 NHL, it's time once again to ask our question of the day, which we asked our question of the day before, but we'll still pose it again. Should the NHL look for a new commissioner? Tom, your answer?
I guess the answer is I understand what the allegations against Bettman are, but the real question is that who do you get? Now, do you promote from within like they have done in the past? Do you maybe just promote Bill Daly for the job? And it also depends, what kind of person do you want? Do you want a progressive guy like Bettman who wanted to market the league a little more? And that's what they had wanted back when they had lured him out from the NBA. Do you go that route again with somebody who's going to push the boundaries of the league, who's going to get the league, on national TV? Which, I mean, they're there already. But Bettman has pushed the boundaries of the league that, nobody ever thought they would do. Or do you go more of a conservative route and you bring in a guy like a Clarence Campbell or a John Ziegler, somebody who kind of just, keeps the status quo, keeps it every way the owners want, doesn't push the envelope with anything, and keeps it that way? I know somebody years ago had suggested Ken Dryden take the job from Bettman. I don't even know how old Ken Dryden is. I mean, Ken Dryden, he knows the game. He's a lawyer, one of the greatest goalies ever. I always called him the Michael Jordan of goalies because he only played for so many years, and it seemed like he won the Stanley Cup every year he played. The problem with Ken Dryden is this. He's 74 years old right now. Would he even want the job? I'm not sure he would. So I feel like, yeah, maybe they should look for it, but do your homework. Do your due diligence, Don't bring somebody in just because you need to bring somebody in. If you're really going to get rid of Bettman, then you really got to do your homework on who you want to replace him. And I think maybe what the league needs is they don't need an ultra-conservative like a Clarence Campbell or like a John Ziegler, but they don't need somebody who's super-duper progressive like Bettman, who really killed the game for some Canadian cities, who, in my opinion, overexpanded in the 90s. I still feel like the Anaheim Mighty Ducks and the Florida Panthers came into the league way too early. And Phil Esposito was very much against Bettman. Because when Esposito came into the league, Bettman was not in charge yet when the Lightning expanded. And Esposito was very upset when they brought the Panthers in only 1 year after the Lightning came in and said, how are we going to build a brand down here in Florida when you're putting a second team in and people barely know who we are already? So I think you need somebody like, I hate to say it, like a centerist. You need somebody like with centerist thoughts if you're going to bring a new commissioner into this league. Somebody who will be open to new ideas, but somebody who won't overdo it, but not somebody who will just say, okay, I'm going to keep it like this for the rest of eternity either, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get all of where you're coming from, but Tom, I want you to ask me directly this question.
Sure.
So ask me it. If the NHL should look for a new commissioner.
Should the NHL look for a new commissioner, Brian?
Hell yes. Anyway. Oh my God, they need to. Because here's the thing. I'm that sour on Gary Bettman at the moment because of the laundry list of reasons that I gave before. And I know that there are plenty more in my camp with that as well. And personally, I don't even know if bringing in Bill Daly solves anything because he's a Bettman crony. Maybe it's more beneficial to bring in somebody who is not associated with Gary Bettman.
True. But like I said, you need to bring in a little bit of a progressive thinker, but somebody with a hockey background. See, that's the problem. In the past, you had guys with hockey backgrounds who weren't progressive. Then you brought Bettman in with no hockey background, but he was progressive. So you need to find that medium somewhere. And it's just a matter of where you're going to find it. And like I said, I'm not sure Ken Dryden would even want the job if they gave it to him.
It's tough to say, but I mean, that being said, there's a reason why, we are armchair GMs and why other people, do this as well. So that being said, we'll let those people kind of solve it and decide. But that being said, guys, what do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our takes? You got to make sure that you let us know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, drop a like and subscribe for all of our NHL content. And not only just for our NHL content, but our NFL, MLS, NCAA football, and NBA content as well. But you can also find our content down below at i80sports.com. While you're there, hit up our shop, get yourself a t-shirt as low as $8. And hey, if you like the beanie I'm currently wearing with our emblem on there, you can also find that beanie there as well in a couple different varieties as well. I personally love the red and gray. I think it's just perfect for any kind of Devils fans. I also want to kind of rep hockey as well. And it's just super comfy. It keeps my head nice and warm, especially as we're entering the winter season. It's nice and fashionable too. Consider getting yourself a beanie just like this over at our shop. And if you are on Twitter, make sure you follow us down below at i80_sportsNHL. And if you're following us already, thank you guys so much because we greatly value all of your support. But hopefully we won't have to talk about so much controversy as we have been the past couple weeks. Hopefully we can, get back to some normal news stories starting next week. But until then, I'm Brian. He's been Tom. This has been yet another episode of i80 Sports NHL.